Hi, welcome. I'm Jess Auger. I'm a current MA film student studying at Liverpool John Moores University, and I'll be hosting this Q&A session for the animation strand. And I'm super excited to get to know you all a little bit better, and I thank you all for being here. So first of all, just so everyone in the audience can get to know you a bit better, I'd like you to be able to introduce yourselves. So tell us just a bit about yourself, where you're from, your film, and what university or school you attend or have attended. So Ramon, if you're okay with going first, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. First, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. So I'm Ramon Faria. I'm from Brazil. I did the film SERF while I was earning my master's degree in Full Sail University in Florida. I worked for a long time in film and television. I work on the huge TV channel here in Brazil called Global. And also I made some short films in my career in different techniques. And now today we are talking about surf. So I think it is, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Okay.
And Cassia, would you be okay to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, so I'm Kasia Orłowska. I'm 20 and I'm currently on the second year of my study, and I study animation at University of the Arts in Poznań. It is in Poland. Well, and I think that's all.
That's fine, thank you. And lastly, we have Emir. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Greetings from Istanbul, Turkey. First of all, I hope everyone well in the pandemic conditions. I'm the director, producer, and scriptwriter of Screen for Ice, and I have made the Screen for Ice within the scope of my professions in our thesis. And the title of my thesis is Screen for Ice, a haiku short film as a new narrative form at the intersection of cinema and poetry. So with this study, I created a new narrative form and short film genre, and the project was supported by Malta Bay University with this Scientific Research Project Foundation. So yeah, that's all, I guess, for now.
That's great, thank you. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. It's lovely to finally meet you. And it's so wonderful to see such like a diverse range of filmmakers from all over the country coming together and sharing a similar interest. So I'd now like to go back to Ramon and just ask a few questions about the animation SERF. So obviously SERF, it's a beautifully crafted animation that follows the story of this robot discovering the outside world. And the ending, I guess you could say, is quite tragic in a way. It's quite sad. Was there a particular reason that you chose this kind of ending?
Not particular, but I like to plot twists, you know. I like to show something and suddenly everything changes. So and also I think everybody works on the routine inside the office or in industry, and think like maybe there's something better outside and sometimes not. So I just think like make a end that show maybe it's not a good decision, try to escape from some stuff. It's just there's no, maybe there's a reason inside my head that I cannot explain, you know. Yeah, I think it is.
That's great. And obviously SERF, it's quite like a puppetry style of animation in a way. Have you done this kind of animation before, or was it completely like new to you?
No, I have did it before. I have some films on my career, some short films, and each one has a different technique. It's not because I want to try different techniques. It's more because I decided to use some different techniques following the script. So when I am writing the script, I think, oh, it's better if I do this using 2D, hand drawing, or stop motion, and sometimes I use puppets. So I think the film decide what kind of technique you use on the film, you know. For example, my next short film I will do in live action. So I think depends of the script. I use some techniques, but yes, I use before some puppetry. Sometimes I have here. Sometimes I use like a puppet from the bottle, like this, and sometimes I use string puppets like on SERF. I decide following the film style. You know?
Yeah. And could you, like, I find it really interesting, the whole like puppetry animation. Could you tell a bit us about like the process of it, how you kind of create the puppets and, you know,
Yeah.
of them?
I think the most funny and the part that I most like is the creation. I
Mhm.
spend a lot of time planning how to create this. Surf, I use that kind of styrofoam board like this, you
Yeah.
know, yeah, to make like the puppets that size. I plan to do a small film because I want the audience, I want who is watching to feel that tie, you know, feel the claustrophobic, feel the pressure to work in the sun on the same routine. So I did everything small. So I decide to use this because I think it's better to show. And also I film on the 4x3 on square to show that kind of stuff. So I love to plan. Back to the question, I love to plan puppets. I love to do this, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
If sometimes I escape from the question, you push me back, please, because sometimes I'm go changing. And also, if you don't understand something because the language, let me know, please.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. Even if you do get slightly off the question, it's lovely to, you know, hear more about it because it's really intriguing. And I guess, you know, creating an animation, I think everyone can agree, there's a lot of, it's quite difficult to get it perfect. Did you find any struggles or any difficulties whilst making Surf?
Yeah, I think the most struggle and most difficult on this case was the strings because I
Mm.
need to move the puppets on the set, and a lot of times I was moving and uh, hit something on the background and the background fall apart, and so I need to plan everything, every shot. I did the sets. The background was like a box, so
Yeah.
I can take off a wall and film that way, and so I put the wall again and film the other way. So I can use all the four walls. So I think the most difficult was do the small stuff, you know, small charger and the little stuff. I like to do this, but it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for that, Ramon. It was really
No
interesting
problem.
to hear about
Thank you.
behind the scenes of that animation. And next, if I could move on to Cassia with Blue Monday. Hi.
Hi.
So obviously Blue Monday follows this character who dreams of being free from this crowded city. I was wondering if this story was influenced by maybe your own personal experiences.
Um, well, maybe a little bit. I think that my own feelings influenced the idea and inspired me. But actually, I came up with the idea when I was just riding on a bus, stuck in traffic, and I just had the picture in my mind of like a crowd and cars turning into the sea and waves, and I built a story on that picture.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing how you can just be on a bus and then suddenly you come up with this like idea for this amazing animation. And obviously, I think what's most unique about this animation is how it's done with oil painting. So is painting and art something that you're quite fascinated by? Has it always been a hobby and then you thought, oh, I'll put this into an animation?
Well, I've been drawing and painting since I was a child. So it was not something new to me, but then I started doing animation in college, so like 2 years ago, and I always loved that animations made with paint, so I wanted to try to make one by myself, and I really love this technique. I hope that I will have a chance to make another film like that.
Yeah, it's definitely lovely, and it's definitely very talented to be able to paint.
Thank you.
And obviously I can imagine with the oil painting, well, actually first, could you tell us a bit about how you actually make it? Because I wouldn't have a clue how to start really. So
Well, I just had a glass put on a desk and a camera, and I just painted on the glass and made a photo frame by frame. It was time consuming, of course. Like the animation is short, it's around 1 minute, but it took me like 3 months to make, and well, that's it.
yeah, it requires a lot of patience. 3 months is quite a long time. But in terms of like, obviously you probably have to be quite accurate with painting. Is it one of those where if you mess up the painting, would you have to start all over again? Is that something that's quite difficult when creating this?
Yes, I had to be really careful because in this technique you can't really go back, because you will see that you did it later and it will just not look good. So I had to make it perfect at first take, and that's one of the reasons why it took me so long to make it.
Yeah, I can imagine it requires a lot of dedication to do it. Well, thank you for that, Cassia. That was really, really interesting. So thank you for answering those questions. And next, Emir could tell us a bit about Scream for Ice. Hi, Emir.
Hi there.
Hi. So,
Yeah.
in your director statement, you mention about how you were inspired by the Japanese art of poetry, haiku. Could you tell us a bit about what this is and how it influenced the production of Scream for Ice?
Sure. During my studies in film, I have been looking for creating my own cinematic language, film language. And when I was in UK, I was looking for it. But after years and years, for about 9-10 years, I figured out I need a narrative form first, and then I can figure out what kind of cinematographic language I can relate it or create. So, to be honest, personally, it was quite a journey for me, because the foundation of Japanese arts is reached to perfection with simplicity. And as an individual and a director, this point of view was the main thing affect me a lot in the film and in my life as well. I have been interested with haiku poems, to be honest, but I will never look at from this point of view to this subject. So, I guess our audience who are with us today or who will watch this later on, they don't know what I said in my director's statement. So let me just talk about it, first of all. quickly as much as I can. But before that, I want to share with you the one quotation from an amateur Turkish haiku poet who described haiku very well, I guess. He says, haiku is not a form of a poetry, it's a form of saying, and it targets to catch a moment in an ordinary event, and to penetrate its inner nature, and then with the other moments, to share that moment as a permanent memory.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. It really shows how much, work and research and inspiration goes behind creating, an animation.
Jess, do you want me to start with the questions from the audience, or do you want to ask a few more things?
No, I think that was it. And thank you for answering all those questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great. So yeah, I have a few questions from the audience, and the first one is for Katja, and it's about it's from Demelza, and it's whether everything you painted was on the same canvas, or did you make several paintings? So it's more about the technique, really, and it was actually very fascinating to understand really how you did it, because it's such a unique, well, for me at least, animation. Haven't seen many animations like this, so it was great. So can you tell us a bit more whether basically it was one canvas that you painted on, or changed?
Yeah, it was one canvas, or more like one piece of glass that I painted on, and I just like made one shot, and then I like washed it to make it more to get rid of the paint. And then I made another shot on the same glass. So.
Right. So you started, every shot was from scratch, completely, every completely from scratch. I mean, you didn't keep any elements from before. I mean, how did you do the movement?
No.
That's what I'm trying to understand. I mean, I don't know if Demelza wants to actually ask any specific about that, but I think it's fascinating to try to understand the technique.
No, then the next frame was like I just painted on like next layer. It wasn't, I didn't change the canvas.
Okay, yes, fair enough. Demelza, do you want to ask anything else about that, or that's okay? Because it's quite a specific question. If not, I will actually ask the second question, which is for everybody, and we can perhaps.
I put some questions in the chat, just to
about this particular one. Yes.
Yeah, about the technique.
Oh, you can say that out.
All right. So I thought that's very interesting to hear. Thank you very much. So I paint myself.
You can put your camera on.
And sorry?
You can put your camera on as you're talking.
Yeah. So I paint a bit myself, and I know from mixing colors that it's very difficult not to get gray. Because as soon as you start, it becomes a smear. So I was wondering, did you scrape away a lot of paint to preserve the colors so well?
Yeah, I scraped away a little bit of the paint because with each frame the amount of paint was bigger. It was difficult to like get the right colors. So in order to not turn gray, I scraped away a bit of paint, then put on the color.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask, I've got a few questions here. One of them is actually moving away from the image to the sound. I thought it'd be nice to actually vary it. So one of the question is, how important is the sound design in your animation? It's for everybody. So Katarzyna, do you want to start again? And then we move on to Ramon and then to Emir?
Well, I can start, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think the sound is really important because it builds the atmosphere of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had a music in my film composed by by Kasper Krupa, who is like who's a musician, and he works with many animators from my college. So I really think he did a good job.
Mm-hmm. So you added that at the end, or was it part of the?
No, it was added at the end after the film was finished.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Yes. I know it's not Ramon. Ramon, how do you pronounce your name? Ramon.
Ramon.
Ramon. Can you
Yeah.
tell us? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's very important because animation has no sound. You cannot capture on the set like a live action. So it's very important. And also, I think it's because I'm a musician, I play instrument. So some shots I use the music like a guide, like old Mickey Mouse. You remember they dance on the rhythm of the music. So I use the music to set the rhythm on my shorts and also the sound design to make effects. So I think it's very important, very, very important.
Yeah, thank you. I'll get back to some question about sound because I have a follow-up question on this chat, but I want to ask Emir if he wants to say something more about the sound design in your
Yeah, it's important as much as the other tools of creating film, you know, and as a director, you should think about it when you start to think about your story and the way you tell it. So, I mean, it's not something, after all, you will think about it, even if it's animation or live action movie, you know, you need to really design it really well, and it needs to show to the film. You know, sometimes when people make scorings for the films, sometimes you remember the music, but you don't remember the film. So that means, you know, there's something wrong about some decisions that might be, let's say, at least. So it is really important.
Okay, fair enough. That's great. So I will go to the follow-up question on sound, which I have on the screen here, which is about, so I just lost it now. Dear me, sorry. It was about, yes, what was the influence on the sound design on your music? Do you have some films that you were inspired by, or a kind of music or a kind of sound that you thought, this is what I want to have? Is it something that you conceived? I mean, your films don't really have dialogue anyway, so yes, you don't have to think about dialogue here. But yes, what was the influence is the question on the sound, if there's anything specific you can say. Anyone can volunteer to answer first. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think I don't have influence like I like the old foley. I don't know how you say in English, foley, right?
Foley sound.
Yeah, foley sound. So I like the old way to do this, use objects. So my influence is do like for real, like grab stuff, not so digital, so not so digital, not computer, but I like to use this. On the SERF, I use this. On the Fresh, of my another film, I use real stuff to make sound. I think this is my influence on the sound design.
Sound good, thank you. Does Emir or Katya have to add anything? Do you want to say something?
I can say something. So I didn't influence really the music because I've seen I've heard the soundtracks of Kacper Krupa before, and like I knew he's gonna do a good job, so I just sent him the animation and really trusted him to do it how he wants it to do, and I'm satisfied.
That's fine. I think you should congratulate him because he did a very great job. Yeah. Emir, do you have anything to add to this or not really? And I mean, the question as well is whether you actually gave a guidance. I mean, Katya just said that she just let her composer do whatever he fancied because she trusted him. But did you give guidance?
Sure. Because I mean, it's a really, in my situation, this new narrative form has strict rules. So I can't use music in the film or in the credits, and I can't use dialogue as well. So, and all this, as visuals has, sound also has duality and subtext in it. So when you hear two ice cubes crash each other, you hear sound of and a piece of ice break from the ice desert and become an iceberg. So there are those kind of duality. So for each plan, whatever we see, we design it one by one, and we think about it, make a decision about it. So it's a specific thing for this project, to be honest, because of the narrative form. But whatever you do, you have to take care about it.
Sure.
And make decisions, make sure you make the right decisions on that. So sound is one of those subjects as well.
Thank you. That's great. I think I've got a question which was asked earlier on. That's by Kelsey Draper. She says, it's a question for everybody. Why did you use that style of animation to present your story? I mean, why did you choose, and we now move beyond sound now, just mostly to the visuals, but why that particular style? And particularly since we actually your films represent 3 very different types of animation. It'd be interesting to see, what made you think, well, to tell this story, that's how I should do it. So anybody can volunteer to answer first. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I decide what technique I use based on the script. As I said before, for example, SERF asked me to do small stuff, so I think puppet is more realizable. But for example, I have some films on 2D. My next short film will be in live action, because if I try to use animation, I think it's not have the same impact on this, because on my next short film, the people go to inside the video game. So I think if I do this on animation, it's not the same impressive like the real actor go transform to the video game. So I think I choose the technique based on the script and think what will be better on that story, what to serve the story.
And specifically for SERF, you actually thought that, these little cutaways is the best way to tell a story of the robot. Is there a particular reason why you thought of this particular technique for this particular film?
Yeah, because I want to do with a robot. And first, thinking on the production wise, I think if I made a real robot and film like live action, it will be more expensive and take more time. So I think to do with puppets. When I think in puppets, I think I need to do small stuff that people even not realize, but on the mind, they will feel like this is small, this is compressed and claustrophobic, So I chose robots. I chose miniature to do this.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. Who wants to go? Katya, do you want to say something, or?
Yes. So there are actually many reasons why I chose this technique. First of all, I always want to try it because I love that kind of animation. I was inspired by a known Polish animator, Witold Giersz. I'm not sure if you know him, but he is known from making animations in oil paint. And also, when I was thinking about how it should look, I wanted my film to look like impressionist painting without many details, more like trying to get that impression of a rainy city. And I thought that oil paint is gonna allow me to work on the texture of the painting to make it look like it's raining. And I also think it fits the melancholic atmosphere of the film.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It does fit beautifully, and yeah.
Yeah, and I really wanted to focus on the colors of the animation to show the contrast between the hero and environment.
Yeah, thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, great. How about you, Emir? Is there a particular reason you chose the visual style, the particular style of animation?
There are obvious reasons for choosing animation. First of all, I can't go to Arctic in these pandemic conditions, so it was really impossible to shoot it there. And
not so much why you chose animation. Animation's fine, but that particular style of animation.
I see. I mean,
I mean, it might be that you just like it and that's it, you know, but I'm just wondering whether you had a thought about.
Actually, it's really expressed the atmosphere we are living it, you know, so it's colorful. So we thought our lives are really colorful when we are living in a great conditions, but actually it's not. So there are lots of decisions about color and palette choices. So yeah, and we combine 3 different animation techniques because we need them to use. That's all.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I've got a question by Rosie Foster, who she had to leave early, but I should also tell you that Rosie Foster made the trailer for the animation strand. So, you know, it's a shame she had to leave early. So she knows your films very well because she had to select extracts to work with. And she's answering a question. She's asked a question that has been partly answered, but I thought I'll get back to this. Is this style consistent across all your work? I mean, Ramon has already said that not, but I wonder about if anybody else wants to add something to this. I mean, basically, is your style consistent?
I guess I can say something. Well, I started to do animations recently, so I wouldn't say it's consistent because I'm still trying many different techniques. So I've already done animation in paint, in stand, drawing animations, and I still have some techniques I want to try, like a puppet animation. So no, it's not consistent, but I wish I will do another film in paint one day.
Good, thank you, thank you. Emir, do you want to say something about that or not?
And not really. I this is my second animation film, but the first one was 3D animation. So, as Ramon said before the session, I mean, the story of the film demands your style, what kind of movie you're gonna make. So, this one is completely different. If I compare the rest of them, yeah.
Thank you. Jess, I would like to say that I've discovered that Rayna Buxton of Fáros has just joined us. So Rayna, you possibly got confused with the time zones and all that because we actually started 3/4 of an hour ago, but as we haven't finished yet, perhaps Jess can actually start the conversation. I should say that I'm Lydia, who asks the questions now by the audience, but Jess has been hosting the session, so I will pass you on to Jess. And thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you for joining.
I'm so sorry about that.
It's fine.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I calculated it out, and something must have went wrong.
So I mean, you're based in the States, and that's very difficult times for you now. I don't know what time it is where you are, but we understand. We have sympathy. What time is it where you are, Rayna?
It's 6:47 a.m.
6:47. Well, we understand.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Jess, do you want to ask Rayna some questions?
Yes, yeah. I mean, firstly, do you just want to say a sentence and introduce yourself quickly and just introduce yourself to the audience? So where you're from, your film, and what university or school you attended or currently attend.
Yeah, I'm Rayna Buxton. I grew up in a relatively rural place, so I would always go mushroom hunting and whatnot as a kid. And I, a couple years ago, started going to CalArts, which is in a much different place near the sea. So I wanted to make something that kind of celebrated nature there and the differences between it, but also the similarities.
Well, thank you for that. And so just a few questions about Fáros, just to get to know you as a filmmaker a bit better. So obviously in Fáros, we follow the story of this lighthouse keeper called Ori. And although he doesn't speak, he comes across quite a quirky and unique character through his appearance and his mannerisms. Was there anything that kind of inspired you to create Ori as a character?
I'm not sure. It just kind of, I have a dog going wild. I was just kind of drawing him, and he one of the drawings just kind of had that attitude to it. I didn't particularly, he just kind of came organically.
And obviously the whole animation, there's a lot of mythical creatures and it is based around the sea. Is this something that you're quite interested in, like the kind of mythical creatures like mermaids and stuff? Is it something you're fascinated by?
Yes, I love all things fantasy and kind of nature spirit based. I love a lot of the fairy drawings that Brian Froud does. Just anything in between human and nature.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And I guess the last question I have is, did you have any difficulties or any problems whilst creating this animation?
Yes, I definitely, the longest part of the process was the very first scene that I did. The very first scene that I started was also the last scene that I finished, and that was the fishing scene, because I didn't fully know what my pipeline process was when I started making this film. I had to figure it out as time went on and adjust it. And by the end, I finally had it down, and I had to go back and adjust my previous scenes after I learned how to do this pipeline process with the hybrid of 2D and puppet animation.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. I don't know whether the audience have any.
It's okay, Jess. Thank you. There's already some questions for the audience. And actually, before I go to the audience, thank you, Rayna. I was going to ask you if you could tell us a little bit more about the technique that you used to make this film, because you already said something that intrigued me, and I would like a bit more explanation. Yeah.
Sorry if it gets a little bit rambling. It's just like a weird. So it is a combination of peg animation. It's all in the same program, but it's a combination of peg animation and drawn animation. So I kind of think of it as a digital stop motion type technique.
Okay.
So I have all the body parts on different layers, and Ori has a head turnaround, and I will use that to go through. I will use the head turnaround throughout it, but I will traditionally draw in the program, but I will physically draw out the arm and hand positions for each of it. And Clam is fully drawn, the cat.
Yeah.
But all of his body parts are on different layers, and I will render out each of those layers, bring them into After Effects, and use the lighting in that to create the shadows. Sorry, it's a bit hard to.
No, that's actually very, very interesting, actually. Yeah, I mean, I don't actually know anything about computer animation, the technology, but what you describe is fascinating to me. I have a question, follow up on this by Demelza. In fact, Demelza, since you have a couple of questions, I'll pass the word to you if you don't mind asking them directly.
Yeah, thank you for joining us so early for you. That sounds super interesting, and I have to admit that while watching it, I didn't notice that. Did you hear about this technique somewhere else, or did you discover it as you went along?
I did not hear about it specifically somewhere else. What actually happened is we just had a class with After Effects, and this lighting software was mentioned. And the first thing that I drew for this film was just, I was drawing some food, and I drew the fish plate. And I ended up bringing it into After Effects and pulling in a light and seeing what happened with it. And I liked the result. And it just kind of grew organically out of that and evolved over time. Although there are things I actually like, Flapjack, that kind of employs similar stuff in terms of combining with the idea of stop motion, but I didn't hear about it anywhere else.
Me neither. And yeah, I thought the invention of a crab lighthouse was very funny and very original. Perhaps I'd like to see a whole film about this character. It's very, very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rayna. I want to actually follow on with some questions that were asked for everybody, and the other participants answered at least some of them anyway. One of them is whether you considering to carry on using the similar technique for future films, and also, have you actually used it for other films already? I can hear that's quite a complicated, specific, and distinctive technique, but this is something that you kind of will develop further, basically.
I think I would like to, although I also do, part of what I like is kind of creating a new look for each film, but I did enjoy this a lot, especially with the photo elements and everything with that for textures. So I think both yes and no. I think I will use elements of this process, but I also want to create something new for every new thing I make. But I might come back to it eventually.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, other question was connected with technique, was also, why did you choose that particular technique for the particular story? In other words, the connection between story and approach. Is there something that you can say about this, basically?
We'll say, when I made that fish drawing and the style, the first thing that I had in mind was a style for this film. It actually didn't start with the full idea, so I just had that image in my mind and I thought of what it could be. I'm not exactly sure why they fit together for me, but I just went through a lot of different ideas and chose one that fit. I honestly don't have much of a reason for that.
That's fine. I do agree that it fits, actually. I do love the film. I think it looks really great. And I like the, the quirkiness of the whole, kind of imaginary world that you created, in the quirky imaginary world. I think the last question I want to ask, which was discussed before, was about the sound and whether you actually gave specific thinking about the sound. I mean, how did you go about designing it, and the kind of non-visual side of things?
Well, I mostly just I used a lot of combined sounds from free websites mostly. I definitely had a very clear idea of the sound, especially in the area of the lights going out and the his room full of the ship in the bottles. I always had an idea of how that would work, and I worked with my composer kind of around that, how I wanted there to be moments of silence.
That's fair enough. That's great. Well, I don't have any specific questions now for you, but I do actually have a specific question that came up earlier about Ramon, and it was about, I'll just find it 1 second. Yeah, it's from Ruth Doughty, and she says that, Ramon, you just mentioned the influence of E. Disney and Mickey Mouse. That was SERF influenced by Wall-E, and Ruth says that she thought your film was better. Was there any kind of influence by Wall-E?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think every film is influenced by every film. We watch festivals, we watch films on movie theater, and influence. But of course, yeah, I think after Wall-E, every robot film, they will make the connection, like, oh, looks like Wall-E. Yeah. But for me, it's a pleasure to be like, oh, look like Wall-E. Yeah,
that's fine.
It's kind of influence, but it's not direct.
That's fair enough. I don't have any other questions here, but if anybody thinks of something that they want to raise now, you can actually make yourself visible and speak. No? In this case, I'll pass you on to Jess, who wants to close this off.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for all the filmmakers for being here. And of course, thank you as well for the audience for asking all the questions and helping support the filmmakers. And also, if you can vote, comment and watch the films on the LJMU MA Short Film Festival website. And we also have social media, which you can like and follow. And just once again, thank you so much for coming. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been so interesting to get to know you all. And best of luck for the rest of the film festival.